Picture a trader sitting alone at his desk. The screen is glowing. A position is open and it's moving the wrong way. He knows it. He can feel it in his chest before he even reads the numbers. A tight, familiar pressure. His breathing gets shallow. His eyes stay locked on the candle like if he watches closely enough, he can will it back. It'll reverse. It has to, so he stays in. The position slides further. Now something changes. It's not anxiety anymore, it's stubbornness. A refusal. He adds to the trade, doubles the size. Because somewhere in his mind, being wrong is worse than losing money. And then the market just keeps going. His account doesn't survive it. Not because his analysis was terrible. Not because the market was against him personally. Because one emotion, given just enough room, was all it took. I've watched this happen more times than I can count. I've been close to that chair myself. And what stays with me isn't the loss. It's how convinced he was at every step that he was doing the right thing. That's what makes this hard. Most people arrive at trading with a specific belief that it's a problem of knowledge. Find the right setup, build the right system, learn to read the chart well enough, so they go looking. They study indicators, they pay for courses, they spend nights watching other people trade on YouTube and think, when I understand what they understand, I'll be ready. But the losses continue. And they can't figure out why. The reason is simple and uncomfortable. They've been working on the wrong thing. The chart isn't the problem. The strategy isn't the problem. The person sitting in front of the screen, how they handle pressure, how they respond to uncertainty, how they relate to being wrong, that's where the real game is played. I've spent most of my trading life studying this. Not just what the market does, but what people do when the market does it. And the one thing I keep coming back to is this. Intelligence has almost no protective value in trading. The traders who last are not necessarily the smartest. They're the ones who can stay steady when everything feels unsteady. The market doesn't reward analysis. It transfers money away from the trader who reacts emotionally toward the trader who doesn't. Every time someone holds a losing position because they need it to come back, money moves. Every time someone exits a winner too soon because the profit feels fragile, money moves. Every time someone enters a trade out of restlessness rather than reason, money moves. Always in the same direction. The question is only which side of that flow you're on. To understand why trading is this hard, you have to understand something about the brain you're working with. It wasn't designed for this. It was built for a completely different kind of survival, physical danger, immediate threats, fast decisions with visible consequences. When your ancestors saw something in the grass, they didn't sit and analyze it. The fastest response kept them alive. So the brain learned to act on fear, to fight when threatened, to want control when things felt out of control. Those instincts kept the species alive. In the market, they quietly drain accounts. Because in trading, the moment fear shows up is exactly the moment you need to be still. The moment you feel the urge to fight back is exactly the moment you should do nothing. The moment you reach for more control is the moment you most need to release it. The brain that protected your ancestors from loss is the brain that holds losing trades past their stops. The brain that made them fight back against threats is the brain that revenged trades. The brain that kept them from uncertainty is the brain that exits winning positions too early. This isn't a discipline problem. It's a biology problem. Until you feel that in your bones, not just understand it intellectually, the same patterns will repeat. Let me walk you through the specific traps, the moments where the primitive brain quietly takes the wheel. The first, the need to be right. Most people who come to trading are capable, intelligent people. People who have been rewarded their whole lives for being correct, for having the right answer, for not making mistakes. So the identity forms around correctness. Being wrong doesn't just feel like a wrong call, it feels like a reflection of who you are. In trading, that's devastating, because losses aren't failures. Losses are simply outcomes within a probability distribution. When a trade doesn't work, what it tells me is that the market moved differently than my read suggested. That's all. There's no story attached to it, no meaning beyond the numbers. The moment a trade becomes personal, the moment losing says something about you, you're no longer making decisions. You're protecting your ego. The second, revenge trading, 3 consecutive losses, maybe 4. The brain doesn't experience this as statistics, it experiences it as an attack, and it wants to respond. So a trade opens, not because the setup is clear, but because there's a score to settle, a need to recover what was taken. Here's the thing, the market has no idea you exist. It doesn't hold a grudge. It has no memory of what it did to your account yesterday. When you revenge trade, you're not engaging with the market. You're arguing with yourself. And that argument is one you cannot win. The third, overtrading. The session is quiet, nothing is developing. The brain starts to feel the drag of inactivity, so it starts searching. Looking for something. Lowering the threshold just enough to justify a trade, any trade, that brings back the feeling of being in the game. Overtrading isn't really a trading problem. It's what restlessness looks like when it has access to capital. Real trading, for most of a session, looks like nothing happening. And most people, understandably, humanly, find that very difficult to sit with. There's one more thing I want to address, something traders rarely talk about honestly: the illusion of control. Uncertainty is genuinely uncomfortable for the human brain. It doesn't like open outcomes. So it reaches for more and more charts, more confirmation, more analysis, because the act of searching feels like control, even when it isn't. The belief underneath it: if I look long enough, I'll find the signal that tells me this will work. But here's what I've come to accept completely: nobody knows what happens next. Not experienced traders, not quantitative funds, not the people managing billions. The market is probability, not prediction. Every position you open exists within a range of outcomes, and you genuinely don't know which one you're going to get. The traders who struggle most are the ones who trade to find out if they're right. When I enter a trade, I've already decided before the order is placed that this might lose. Not hoping it won't, accepting that it might, because I'm not trading this single setup. I'm trading a method repeated across hundreds of executions. If the edge is real, and I execute it without interference, the numbers work out over time. The moment I start skipping setups because something feels off, or staying in losing positions because I feel certain, I've introduced the one variable that breaks everything. Think about a large cat lying completely motionless in tall grass. It doesn't move when something passes at the wrong angle. It doesn't react to every sound. It waits with a kind of focused calm that looks like laziness but is actually something else entirely. And when the conditions align, distance, angle, wind, timing, it moves. Once. Precisely. That's not aggression. That's patience converted into action. Most traders behave differently. They're in constant motion, entering, exiting, re-entering, chasing price, looking for the next thing. Activity feels like engagement. Stillness feels like missing out. But the traders who last, the ones who survive long enough to actually compound, they know how to wait. Not because they're disengaged, but because they understand that the edge only shows up sometimes. And when it doesn't show up, the correct move is nothing. The holy grail that traders keep searching for. It exists, but it's not an entry system. It's the ability to execute a proven approach consistently without letting emotion edit the results. That's it, that's the whole thing. Let me talk about the 4 shifts that actually matter. Curiosity instead of fear. When a trade moves against you, fear narrows everything. It wants to contract, to freeze, to do something, anything, to make the discomfort stop. What I've trained myself to bring instead is curiosity. What is this telling me? Where is the weight of the market actually sitting right now? What's the structure showing? Curiosity keeps the mind open and functional. Fear closes it. And a closed mind cannot read the market, it can only react to it. Discipline instead of aggression. The brain reads financial loss as threat. Something was taken. The instinct is to take it back. But acting aggressively in a market is simply spending more capital on the same emotion that cost you money the first time. Discipline isn't exciting. It's not dramatic. It's doing the same correct thing in the same way, over and over, especially on the days when everything in you wants to do something different. What discipline builds, though, slowly and quietly, is consistency. And consistency is the only thing that actually compounds. Neutrality instead of greed. Greed in trading rarely looks like wanting too much money. It usually looks like wanting a specific outcome too badly, needing to be right, needing to recover, needing the trade to work. When the attachment to outcome is strong enough, perception gets distorted. You see confirmation where there isn't any. You ignore signals that contradict what you need to be true. Neutrality is the opposite of that. A trade is a trade, not a story, not a judgment, a probability unfolding. When I can approach the screen without projecting anything onto it, I see what's actually there. Clarity isn't coldness, it's just the absence of noise, patience instead of impulsiveness. The brain craves movement. It wants to feel like something is happening. Impulsiveness is what that craving looks like when it has a keyboard and a brokerage account. Good setups don't appear constantly. They appear when conditions align. The rest of the time is waiting, which looks like nothing, but is actually active preparation. The trader who can sit with an empty screen and feel no urgency to fill it has a real advantage. Not because they're more disciplined in some abstract sense. Because they're only spending capital on trades that actually deserve it. Here's something that might sound strange. I've come to genuinely value losing trades, not because I enjoy the loss. Because a loss, taken cleanly at the stop, is evidence that the system is working. It means I followed the rule. It means the process was intact. A trading system doesn't win every trade. It wins more than it loses over enough trades with enough consistency. If I stopped executing after a losing streak, I'd be destroying the very thing that makes the edge work. Think about how a casino operates. It doesn't close the table after a player wins 3 hands. It plays every hand exactly the same way because the mathematics work over volume. The house doesn't react to individual outcomes. It trusts the edge to do its job. I want to be the house, not the player. The player reacts. The house processes. When I take a loss, I register it, accept it, and move to the next trade. No dwelling, no recrimination, no attempt to make the next trade fix the last one. The trader who can lose well, cleanly, quickly, without it echoing into the next decision, is the trader who survives long enough for the edge to pay out. Losing cleanly is one of the most underrated skills in this entire profession. Understanding this isn't enough. The brain doesn't change through comprehension. It changes through repetition, through new responses, practiced enough times that they start to replace the old ones. Every time you hold past your stop, you reinforce the emotional response. You make it easier to do next time. Every time you cut the loss exactly where you said you would, even while everything in you is arguing against it, you weaken that old circuit and begin building something new. This takes time. Not a week, not a month. Real, repeated execution, trade after trade, until the mechanical response starts to feel more natural than the emotional one. And somewhere in the middle of this process, something subtle starts to shift. You notice things you didn't notice before. A quiet pressure in the chest before a decision that isn't ready yet. A faint urgency that shows up when a trade is going well. Take it. Take it now, not because the setup says to exit, but because something else wants the certainty. A small voice asking, almost politely, "What if I'm wrong?" You don't need to analyze it. You just need to see it for what it is. The best traders I've known don't feel less than other people. They feel what everyone feels. The fear is there. The pull toward action is there. What's different is the relationship to it. They feel the discomfort and continue executing correctly. They feel the impatience and stay still anyway. They feel the fear and act according to the plan. That's not the absence of emotion. That's what mastery actually looks like from the inside. Your job isn't to eliminate what you feel. Your job is to make sure what you feel doesn't make your decisions for you. The market opens every day. Opportunities develop. Price moves. The question is never whether the opportunity is there. The question is always whether you are ready to meet it correctly. Ready to cut the loss while pride is still arguing for patience. Ready to stay out while restlessness is insisting you're missing something. Ready to hold the winner while the small voice is already counting the profit. Most traders aren't ready, not because they lack intelligence or commitment, but because no one told them what they were actually signing up for. They thought they were learning to read charts. They were always learning to know themselves. I spent years looking for edges in price. I found some, but none of them produced results until I addressed the thing they kept running into me. The edge of being able to lose one trade and approach the next one as if it never happened. The edge of staying neutral when the screen is moving fast. The edge of waiting without filling the silence with action. This isn't a comfortable path. It won't feel like progress most of the time, but it's the only one that leads anywhere real, because the market will never adjust itself to accommodate how you feel. You have to do the adjusting. And when that shift finally happens, when you stop trading from urgency and start trading from clarity, something changes on the screen. The noise settles, the pressure lifts. The decisions stop feeling like battles. That's not the finish line, but it's the beginning of actually trading. The best loser wins, not because losing is the destination, but because the trader who can handle loss without carrying it forward is the one who stays in the game long enough for the edge to matter. Take that with you.